been a willing worker, and Liz had always been a great help to him, but he was happy to let her stay home now. He loved coming home in the late afternoons to find her cuddled up with Annie, or watch the two of them playing dolls in Annie's room. It warmed his heart just to see them. He was 49 years old and a happy man. He had a wonderful wife and 2 terrific children. "Where is everyone?" he called that afternoon as he came in, brushing the snow and ice off his hat and coat and pushing the dog away as she wagged her tail and slid around in the puddles he'd made on the floor around him. She was a big Irish setter that they had named Bess after the president's wife. Liz had tried to argue at first that it was a disrespect to Mrs. Truman, but the name seemed to suit her, and it had stuck, and no one seemed to remember how she'd gotten her name now. "We're back here," Liz called out, and John walked into the living room to find them hanging gingerbread men on the tree. They had decorated them all afternoon, and Annie had made paper chains while the cookies were in the oven. "Hi, Daddy, isn't it beautiful?" "It is," he smiled down at her, and then lifted her into his arms with ease. He was a powerful man with the Irish coloring of his forebears. He had black hair even now, a year shy of 50. And brilliant blue eyes which he had bestowed on both of his children. And in spite of her blonde hair, Liz's eyes were a soft brown, sometimes almost hazel. But Annie's hair was almost white, it was so fair. And as she smiled into her father's eyes and rubbed her tiny nose playfully against his, she looked like an angel. He set her down gently next to him, and then reached up to kiss his wife as a warm look passed between them. "How was your day?" she asked warmly. They had been married for 22 years, and most of the time, when life's petty aggravations weren't nibbling at them, they seemed more in love than ever. They had married 2 years after Liz graduated from college. She'd already been a teacher by then, and it had taken 7 years for Tommy to appear. They had almost given up hope, and old Dr. Thompson had never really figured out why she either couldn't get or stay pregnant. She had had 3 miscarriages before Tommy was born, and it seemed like a miracle to them when he finally came. And even more so when Annie was born 10 years later. They admitted easily that they were blessed, and the children gave them all the joy that they had hoped and expected. "I got the oranges in from Florida today," John said as he sat down and picked up his pipe. There was a fire in the fireplace, and the house smelled of gingerbread and popcorn. "I'll bring some home tomorrow." "I love oranges." Annie clapped her hands and then climbed on his lap, while Bess put both of her paws up on John's knees and tried to join them. John pushed the dog away gently, and Liz came down the ladder to kiss him again and offer him a glass of hot cider. "Sounds too good to turn down." He smiled and then followed her into the kitchen a moment later, silently admiring her trim figure. He was holding Annie's hand, and it was only moments after when the front door slammed and Tommy came in with a pink nose and bright red cheeks carrying his ice skates. Smells good. Hi, Mom. Hi, Dad. Hey, Squirt, what'd you do today? Eat all of your Mom's cookies?" He ruffled Annie's hair and gave her a squeeze, getting her face wet with his own. It was freezing outside and snowing harder every moment. "I made the cookies with Mommy, and I only ate 4 of them," she said meticulously as they laughed. She was so cute she was hard for anyone to resist, least of all her big brother or her doting parents. But she wasn't spoiled. She was just well-loved, and it showed in the ease with which she faced the world and met every challenge. She liked everyone, loved to laugh, loved playing games, loved running in the wind with her hair flying out behind her. She loved to play with Bess, but better yet, her older brother. She looked up at him adoringly now, taking in the well-worn ice skates. "Can we go skating tomorrow, Tommy?" There was a pond nearby, and he took her there often on Saturday mornings. "If it stops snowing by then. This keeps up, you won't even be able to find the pond," he said, munching on one of his mother's delicious cookies. They were mouth-watering, and they were all Tommy could think of as his mother carefully took off her apron. She wore a neat blouse and a full gray skirt, and it always pleased John to notice that she still had the figure she'd had when he first met her in high school. She'd been a freshman when he was a senior, and for a long time it had embarrassed him to admit that he was in love with a girl so young. But eventually everyone had figured it out. They teased them at first, but after a while everyone took